Invincible Season 2, Episode 3. This is an amazing episode. This is my favorite episode so far. So I want to give my quick thoughts before I get into spoilers. So, it's a fantastic episode. Go watch it. 10 out of 10. Boom. Spoilers. No, just kidding. Yeah, this is a great episode. It does a lot. We're still balancing these cool emotional moments and building on characters, which is the stuff I really love about Invincible. I love the blood and violence and the gore and everything, but the characters are definitely what carried this series and the comic book series. If we didn't care about the characters, we wouldn't really care too much about the action and everything that's going on in the show. So this episode does a great job of building on, future threats, what's going on with our characters, and, the continuing sadness that some of these characters are feeling from what happened at the end of the first season. So, like I said, it's a 10 out of 10 episode. I really absolutely loved it, and it had an amazing ending, which I'm so excited for the next episode. So let's get into spoilers. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, spoilers. So the show starts off with Debbie dropping off Mark at college, and she's very sad, and Mark's a little bit sad too, but he's like, hey, I can be home, in 5 minutes if you need me to, just call me or whatever. And he goes to his dorm room, which he's sharing with William, and William and him start talking about their room, and William's just like, okay, well, let's get some rules out of the way. He's like, shows him, he goes to the front door, and he's like, if I put a sock on it, that means, I have someone over and we're doing stuff. It's same thing with you. If you have someone over, just put a sock on it, and that'll let us know not to come in. And while they're talking about this guy comes over, and he's like, hey, who left this box out here full of toys? And Mark's just like, oh, those are mine. And at first he's gonna bring him into his room, but he looks down the hall and he sees all these, people who seem mature and everything. So he kind of feels bad. So he goes out to the dumpster to toss out his toys, and he's about to walk away, but he goes back and he picks out his favorite toy, his favorite comic book character toy, Seance Dog, and he goes back to the room. And when he gets to the room, there's a sock still on the door, or a sock on the door. So he's like, I can't believe William's already, having sex and everything on the first day of college. So he goes to talk to Amber, and he's like, who has sex on the first day of college? And Amber's like, we can if you want. And Mark's like, really? And she's like, yeah. So they start making out a little bit and starting to take their clothes off and everything like that. And Amber's just asking curious questions. She's like, you're not gonna crush me with your super strength or anything, are you? And he's like, no, I don't think so. And she's like, you don't have super sperm, do you? He's like, no, I think it's normal. Which are valid questions to ask someone who has superpowers. Is like, you're not gonna freaking just smash my body when you get excited. So they start getting into the deed, and then all of a sudden we kind of start flying out of the room, and a narrator starts talking. They're like, let's give these two privacy while we go deep into space to see what's happening. So we go into space, and we get a story about the Unopans, I believe they're called, the alien race that Alan is, and we get the background of their history, where they were this super advanced, peaceful people, but one day the Voltrumites came and started killing all of them and enslaving them pretty much. And for a long time they were slaves and they worked for the Voltrumites until they had the chance to rebel. And it shows a flashback of them rebelling and everything. But even though they created all these strong weapons to rebel, they still weren't strong enough to defeat the Voltrumites, and they were defeated once again. But luckily, a small group of them were able to escape the planet and start repopulating through breeding programs. And through these breeding programs, they started doing pretty much super soldier experiments, and which they all end up in failure except for one person, which is Alan, the alien. And we get a title card. This, instead of Invincible, this episode is Alan, the alien, which is really hilarious. So we follow Alan for a good while. He arrives back to the planet of the coalitions of planets, I think it's called, and he goes there to talk to the council, and he explains that even though he got lost and went to the wrong planet, he ended up finding something that might help him, which is Mark, Invincible, the only Voltrumite that they know of who has ever rebelled against their people. They're usually very loyal and everything, and it's it's never been known if anyone has turned against the people. And not only that, that Omni-Man fought him, his father fought him, and then he just left the planet, which is also something that has never happened. No Viltrumite has ever abandoned their planet that they were sent to conquer. So he's like, this is big news. We can use Mark's help. Maybe there are other children of Viltrumites that we can gather and, you know, help them, or have them help us fight against the Viltrumite Empire. And the council doesn't really believe him. They're like, no, we can't trust the Viltrumites. It's probably a trick or something like that. And Alan gets upset and he leaves, or they send him away. And he's just like, I can't believe they're just not listening to me. Which General or Lieutenant Tula, I think her name is. I can't remember her name exactly. She's Alan's girlfriend. She also is there talking to him, and she's like, yeah. It's like, you know, the Viltrumites are all about genetic supremacy. Why are they breeding with other species? That's never been heard of. And Alan's like, yeah. Why are they doing that, you know? Which is something to keep in mind. But then Thetis comes out, voiced by Optimus Prime himself, comes out and he's just like, hey, Alan, I have a mission for you. He's like, some of these new planets that are joining our correlation are being attacked really quickly, so we think there's a mole, and I want you to find out who it is. And Alan's like, yeah, I got it, I can help you out. So he goes home, and Tula meets him there. They start, you know, having sex as well. And then we go back to Mark and Amber, who are also having sex still. So then we go back to Alan's place for a little while, and we focus on his cat. And so we go to this space diner where Alan and his girlfriend are eating dinner together and talking. And she's like, what did Thetis tell you? You know, what did he tell you that he didn't want me to hear? So Alan goes in to whisper. He's just like, hey, he told me that there's a spy that is in our ranks, and he wants me to figure out who he is. But before he could say more, a Viltrumite breaks into the freaking restaurant, grabs Alan, and rips him right onto space. And they're like, tell us about this Viltrumite who rebelled, who had a son. You know, they're trying to figure out who Mark and Omni-Man are. And again, because there's a spy in the Coalition who obviously told them what's going on. Alan's just like, no, I'm not going to tell you. All you know, he starts making fun of him. All you two-eyed people look the same to me. So they're like, okay, they just beat the hell out of him and pretty much just about kill him. They chop off his arm, they smash him to pieces, his eye pops out, and then they do the Viltrumite punch right through his stomach with his guts and everything flying. And then they take off and leave, and on the next scene we see Alan in the hospital, who is still luckily alive, but in really critical condition. And Tula is looking after him, and Thetis comes in, and he's like, I'm sorry this happened, but I'll make sure he's well taken care of. She's like, thank you. She leaves, and as she leaves, Thetis turns down his life monitoring machine thing, essentially killing him. Or does he? So anyway, the episode ends there in a sad tone where Alan has possibly been killed. No, just kidding. It's kind of a fake out. They have fake credits, and then we go back to Earth, and we go to the Guardians headquarters, and we see Duplicate working out, and then Rexplode comes in, and they have a conversation about Rex is still upset, thinking that she cheated on him, and she's like, we were never an item, and even if we were, I don't know what you cared. You cheated on Eve when we got together. And she explains that she's with Immortal because they have two things in common. One, she's almost lived probably as long as him with all her duplicates, because every time she has a duplicate, you know, however long they're alive, they add up to her kind of time span. And she's also died probably as much as the Immortal. So they have those things in common, which is why they kind of got together. And Rex is kind of understanding, but he's still kind of upset about it. And then Monster Girl is just like, kind of comes in and starts making fun of him. And then Shay Smith comes in. Freaking Shay Smith is hilarious. He's like, hey, hello, fellow humans. I'm gonna do the treadmill and just stand here and run. It's just a very fun bit that I'm butchering it. So anyway, Monster Girl goes to Rudy, who is trying to practice getting rid of his fear, because in the first episode, he was scared, which, you know, hurt him during a mission, or almost got him hurt, and Monster Girl had to save him. So he's like, I'm trying to get rid of my fear, And Monster Girl's just like, fear is an important thing. Don't just try to get rid of it. It's something we all need. And he's like, well, fear prevents me from also asking you out. So he ends up asking her out, and it's like, hey, let's go to the movies. And she's like, yeah, okay, we'll go to the movies. And then we go over to Debbie, who uses Olga's card to call this help group called SOS. And SOS, again, is for spouses of superheroes, pretty much the spouses who have lost their superhero spouse, and they're a support group. So she goes there and she meets them, and she kind of feels uncomfortable, but she starts feeling better about herself. Like I've said in the past, she's very depressed and still sad about everything that's happened, and she just doesn't have anyone to talk about it. So it's looking like the group is going to help her. But when the meeting ends, she meets up with one of the group members outside, and he's like, hey, you want to go to a bar and get a drink? And she's like, yeah, okay, I'll go get a drink. So they go to the bar and they have a drink, and they start talking, and she realizes that he's the husband of the Green Ghost who Omni-Man killed. So she starts kind of panicking, and she excuses herself. She ends up going outside, and it kind of looks like she's having a panic attack. And he goes out there and he's like, are you okay? And she's like, no, I'm not okay. Like, I'm still sad about everything. She's like, I understand. I still see my wife and I worry about her. And she's like, no, you don't understand. She's like, my husband is still alive, so I can't grieve and get past it because he's out there. And she pretty much tells him that her husband was Omni-Man, and which really upsets him. He's just like, I wish that guy was dead, not so you can grieve, but for myself. And he tells her, don't come back to group, we can't trust you, and it's not a safe place with her, which really breaks Debbie, which is sad. She's been really suffering this season, which is understandable after everything that happened, and her and Mark are kind of distant because they can't really help each other. So that's where Debbie's story ends this episode. And then we go over to Monster Girl and Rudy. They go to the movies, and then they go to eat, and their relationship is slowly and steadily building as they really connect, which is good stuff that's going to be important for later on. And then we go over to Mark, who, after hooking up with Amber, gets back to his dorm room at night, and William wakes up as Mark lays down in bed. He's like, you guys had sex, tell me all the details. And Mark's like, oh no, I'm not going to tell you all that stuff, it's personal. And while they're talking, there's a knock on the door, and William's just like, that must be Amber, for round 2. And Mark's just like, no, we made plans for tomorrow. And William opens the door, and he just has a surprised look on his face when someone asks for Mark. And then he closes the door, he comes back in and puts a blanket over his head, and he's just like, it's for you, Mark. So Mark goes over and he opens the door, and it turns out it's Seonstock, his favorite comic book character. And Mark's just like, what the heck is this? Some kind of trick? So he grabs Seonstock and brings him to the room, and he's just like, who are you? And he's like, I'm Seonstock. I use magic and everything. You know me. And Williams was like, Mark, you need to take him out of here. So Mark takes him outside, and they start talking, and the guy Seonstock keeps saying he's Seonstock, and Mark just isn't believing it. So he throws him on the floor really hard out in the woods, and the alien is finally like, okay, he undoes his disguise, and it turns out to be this blue insect-like alien, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry about that, I just transformed into your favorite character in the hopes to, lull you into, or feel secure, because I needed to talk to you without freaking you out. And he explains that he comes from Thraxa, this planet that is under attack, or has a bunch of meteors destroying it, and he's like, I need you to come help my people. If you don't, billions of people are going to die. And William goes out to the woods, and he's like, Mark, you should do it. You should help someone, because the last time you didn't want to help someone, we both regretted it. Which is William's love interest in the first season, who got turned into a Reaniman. So Mark's just like, okay, I'm going to help you. But before he leaves, they go and talk to Amber, or he goes and talks to Amber, and he's like, hey, Amber, I need to go to space. I'm sorry, it's going to probably be a month, but I have to help these people. And Amber's like, don't feel sorry. Never feel sorry about saving people. And they have this good moment, and Mark's just like, tell my mom, because he's still kind of avoiding her and not talking to her. And Amber's like, okay. And as they fly away, Mark's just like, I love you, Amber, but the phone cuts out because they're talking on the phone. So Mark and the alien take off in the spaceship, and they get to Thraxa, and Mark's just like, okay, where's all these meteors you were talking about? It doesn't look that dangerous. And the alien's just like, what meteors? What are you talking about? He's like, are you kidding me? And the alien's like, oh, well, my people, ages faster than you, so it might just be dementia. So he goes and he introduces him to his monarch of the planet. And as Mark is bowing, he hears his dad's voice saying, hello, son, it's been a long time. And then we see Omni-Man reaching out towards Mark, and Mark's just like, Dad? With a surprised face, and the episode ends. And oh my gosh, such a good freaking moment. Like I said, I absolutely love this episode, and I love this ending. It's setting up the fourth episode, which is going to be fantastic. If you haven't read the comics, or if you have read the comics, it's going to get crazy. The people who read the comics know what's coming, and it's going to be a great episode. Like, I think people think they know what's going to happen if they haven't read the comics, but I don't think they don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be some bloody fun, some craziness, and a lot of good character moments. I think, we're going to get some craziness there, and then we're going to get some craziness with the Guardians of the Globe, probably versus the Lizard League, which is very, very good stuff. So, like I said, I absolutely love this episode. It was a lot of fun. I love the ending, and I'm excited for episode 4. So good. 10 out of 10 episode. So if you watched it, did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. And the next episode is going to be good. Peace out.